This is Amud Yomi Gemara in Shabbos Daf. I involve Amud Beis and B'siyat Shemaya, wrapping up the seventh Perik Al Gadol, in today's year, and all the learning should be an incredible schos refuah shlema from Miriam Ahuva Bas Esther. B'siyat Shemaya, the incredible schos HaTorah should bring Miriam Ahuva Bas Esther and the Tinoik ben Miriam Ahuva a complete and speedy refuah shalema v'karayv b'siyata dishmaya. Picking it up from the Mishnah on the top of Ayin Vavim and Beis, says the Mishnah, Ha-moitzi oicholim ki own carries, oichlim, different types of food, ki the size of a dried fig, chayiv, he is chayiv on Shabbos. And, not only that, umitztarfim zeh, different types of foods can combine with one another to equal the requisite gregarious, which is the minimum share of chiyuv. Why? Because they're equal in their shear, because all foods have the same minimum shear to be chayiv, which is a gregarious. Therefore, they're all going to combine. Therefore, if I take out a half a gregarious of one type of food, half a gregarious of another type of food, if I carry them together on Shabbos, that's considered carrying one gregarious, and that will create the Isser De'araisa. It says the Mishnah, it's only the food. Chotz, this is except for Miklipoiseim, their shells, Vegarineim, their pits, Uxeim, and their stems, Visuban, and their bran, Umursanan, and their fine bran. But Rav Yehuda Omer is one of those items he argues with. Chotz biklibe adashim, the shells of lentils, those, yes, are part of the shear. Why, says Rav Yehuda, shemisbash lois imayem, because the shells of lentils are cooked with the lentils, therefore they're considered one entity together with the lentils. Asks the Gemara of Mitzarfin, why are the subin and the morsa and the different types of brands, why are they not part of the requisite shear? What's the kasha? V'atinan, we learned in a Mishnah, chamishat revayim, kemach v'oid, 5/4 of a kav of flour and a little bit more, chayavin b'chala, creates an obligation to be mafresh, to separate chala, hein, they, v'suban, and their coarse bran, umursanan, and their fine bran. So we see that the bran part of the wheat, of the flour, is included in the obligation for challah. So ask the Gemara, why would it not be included in the obligation for carrying on Shabbos? Explains the Gemara, Merabaye, the reason why it's included in the chi of challah, because an ani indeed eats their flour in their bread, such a mannerism with their not fine flour with the different bits inside of it. But Rashi explains, well, it's not enough people that will create that the stomach is that it would combine with regard to carrying on Shabbos. Rav Yehuda Omer teaches, Rav Yehuda continues the Gemara. We're a few lines from the end of this parak. Rav Yehuda Omer chutz miklibe adashim, says Rav Yehuda in the Mishnah, the shells of lentils he has combined. Why? Because they are cooked together with the lentils. Asks the Gemara, adashim ein poilim loi, only adashim and not beans? Both the shells of beans and lentils, both combined. Says the Gemara, depends what types of beans we're referring to. Like kasha, if it's fresh produce, then indeed the shell is edible. Indeed, the shell is eaten with the bean, and therefore would combine. Habatiki when it does not combine is when it's older produce. The Gemara explains why. Atiki my time aloi. Because it appears like zvuvim, the old beans, their shells look like flies, means they're not edible, they're not generally eaten, and therefore would not combine for the shear of carrying on Shabbos. Hadron Aloch Klal Gadol, not a simple parak, but Hadron Aloch. And with that, we move on to the 8th parak of Shabbos, the parak of Hamoitzi Yayin. And the title of the chapter, of course, of this parak already starts by explaining that we're picking up right where we left off. And says the Mishnah just that. Hamoitzi Yayin, someone who carries wine. At what level is there a chiyuv on Shabbos for carrying? Explains the Mishnah. The amount of wine to mix a cup with it. Chalav, if he carries out milk. K'dei gemiya, enough milk for a swallow, one gulp. Tavash, honey. K'dei litin alakasis, amount of honey you put in a sore. Shemen, oil. K'dei losachever katan, to anoint a small limb. Mayim, water. K'dei loshav bem is a kilar, to mix with a kilar, which is the eye ointment that you use for some medicine. Shar kol amashkim be'revius. All other liquids go by revius. And chol shevchen are wastewaters as well, says the Mishnah. The revius, it goes for a revius. Of course, says Rashi, the Gemara is going to explain what usage is there for wastewater. Why is there a chiyuv bechlal? And of course, everyone can anticipate that these minimum shiurim are coming from the minimum amounts that's normal to utilize these items. But concludes the Mishnah, Rav Shimon Aimer, Kulan Biravias. No, says Rav Shimon, maybe what most of us would have anticipated. Everything goes by Ravias. And all these shurim were only said for when. There are times. But when, says Rav Shimon, Elo lematzni ehen, for those who store these items, for someone who saves the water for that eye salve, for someone who saves the milk for that swallow, then there's a chiyuv of that smaller amount. But if not, then everything is Ravi, says Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in a brayso, enough to mix a kois yafa, a nice kois. What's a nice kois? Says the Gemara, my kois yafi kois bracha. And what is kois bracha? What are the quantities of measurement? And we're not going to ravua. Kois bracha zarshei by roiva revius, has to be a quarter of revius, kadeshiv zegenu, of undiluted wine. Why? So that when you dilute it, when you mix it with water, v'yamoid al revius, it will then be a revius. Stop over here. We'll pick it up from Rava B'siyata Dishmai.